Hello, folks. I am Alan for today's news. I will be reading and speaking about world news, interesting news, news to keep you entertained, and news to keep you informed. And the first two articles I got here is to keep you informed. First one is from Lifehacker. Now scammers can use AI to fake anyone's voice.
When a powerful new technology like AI is dropped into society with no regulation, there will be folks who use the tool for their own benefit, and unsurprisingly, AI is making scammers' jobs much easier and more believable. We wrote about the virtual kidnapping scam making the rounds. With this scheme, scammers use generic voice recordings of children in distress and call families, hoping the targets would think it's their child on the other end. But now, scammers are actually using your child's actual voice, with the help of AI voice generators. What is an AI voice generator? This is how VoiceMod, a Spanish sound effect software company, defines AI voice generator technology. AI voice is a synthetic voice that mimics human speech using artificial intelligence and deep learning. These voices can be used by converting text to speech, like with VoiceMod text to song, or speech to speech, which is how our AI voice collection works. The technology is now being used to enhance what the Federal Trade Commission categorizes as imposter scams, where scammers pretend to be a family member or friend to swindle victims, usually elderly people, out of their money. In 2022, there were over 5,100 reports of imposter scams over the phone, totaling $11 million in losses, according to the Washington Post. There are services readily available for people to generate voices using AI, such as VoiceMod, with very little oversight. Microsoft's Volley text-to-speech AI model claims to be able to simulate anyone's voice with just 3 seconds of audio, as reported by Ars Technica. It can then recreate the pitch, timbre, and individual sounds of a person's voice to create an overall effect that is similar. Haney Farid, a professor of digital forensics at the University of California at Berkeley, told the Washington Post. It requires a short sample of audio, taken from places such as YouTube, podcasts, commercials, TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook videos. How does the AI voice generator scam work? Scammers use the AI voice generator technology to mimic someone's voice, often a young child, to fool a relative into thinking the child is being held for ransom. The scammer demands a sum of money in return for releasing the child safely. As you can see from this NBC News report, it's easy to grab samples of a person's voice from social media and use it to generate anything you want to say. It's so realistic the reporter was able to fool coworkers into thinking the AI generator was actually her, with one of them agreeing to lend her their company card to make some purchases. The scam is incredibly realistic, and people are being caught off guard. There are also different variations using the same technology. A couple from Canada lost $21,000, $15,449 in US dollars, following a phony phone call from a lawyer. The scammer was pretending to represent their child after he allegedly killed a diplomat's son in a car accident, and needed money for legal fees while their son was in jail, according to the same Washington Post report. What can you do to avoid falling for the AI voice generator scam? The best line of defense is awareness. If you know about the scam and understand how it works, you're more likely to recognize it if it happens to you or one of your loved ones. If you receive such a phone call, you should immediately call or video chat the child or victim who was supposedly kidnapped. As counterintuitive as it may seem to do this instead of contacting the authorities or reaching for your credit card to hand over the ransom money, calling them yourself will shatter the scammer's illusion. If it is, in fact, a scam, you will hear or see the victim on the other line going about their regular day. Other than those solutions, unfortunately, there is not much else you can do to prevent being a target. There is technology in place that can detect AI activity in videos, images, audio, and text, but it is not applicable and available to the public to help in situations like this. The hope is that the same technology that created this problem will eventually create a solution to manage itself.
I use AI. You can use for good and bad things. I use AI to read my newscast because it can read a lot better than I can without stumbling over words. And I had another newscast about AIs. About how dangerous that it can be. I'll have a link in my description box about it on that newscast. May have a pop up window here for it. Let me go to the next one here. This is from Tell Me Best. Popular smartphone app caught spying on its users.
Have you ever felt that your cell phone was listening to you? I think it is safe to say that everyone has had a conversation with someone about a topic, and the next time you get on your smartphone app, you see apps advertising the product that was directly related to the conversation. One of China's most popular retail apps, Pinduoduo, has been caught red-handed utilizing malware to acquire personal information. The app bypasses a user's cell phone security, monitors user activities, checks notifications, reads private messages, and changes your phone's settings. This level of intrusion has never been seen from a mainstream company like Pinduoduo. It would be equivalent to Amazon being caught doing this in America. Some might say this is the type of governmental overreach that occurs in China all the time. However, the Chinese government enacted comprehensive data privacy legislation in 2021 to crack down on companies attempting to utilize discovered vulnerability software to gather information without having a person's permission to do so. What should be concerning to us here in the United States is that Pinduoduo is the sister company to Temu. It recently launched in the US and used a Super Bowl commercial in February to introduce itself to our country. The Temu app is currently topping the US download charts and is expanding its reach at a rapid pace in many Western markets. Pinduoduo currently has 750 million users in China. If their app had been written with malware code embedded in it, it's not too far of a stretch to think Temu's smartphone app was also developed with the same nefarious code. According to CNN, according to a current Pinduoduo employee, the company set up a team of about 100 engineers and product managers to dig for vulnerabilities in Android phones, develop ways to exploit them, and turn that into profit. This was an intentional effort to exploit their customers and undermine their competition by collecting user data on their smartphone apps. They even attempted to disguise what they were doing by initially only targeting users in small towns and rural areas and staying away from people living in megacities like Shanghai or Beijing to reduce the risk of being exposed. Once the initial story broke at the end of February by a cybersecurity firm called Dark Navy, Pinduoduo immediately released an update of its smartphone app, version 6.50.0. This update removed the exploits that were in the previous versions. The team that had specifically been working on exploiting Android vulnerabilities was disbanded and most of the engineers transferred to different departments at their subsidiary Temu.
My son was trying to get me to join Temu so he can get free gifts and stuff. And I done some research on them, and I read a lot of bad stuff on them. I told him no way. And the thing about Amazon, when they got in trouble years ago about listening to people on Alexa, well, I stopped using mine years ago. And all my security cameras I got, they use the SD card. And I'm going to get rid of my Ring doorbell. And I'm going to got another one on the way. I'm had a review on it on one of my YouTubes. And it's going to have a local storage. It won't be on the cloud. And I'm trying to do all I can to protect myself. Everybody should be wise. And let's go to the next one here. This is from Fox Business. China expert predicts where U.S. will see the next war start.
China is ready for war and America is ill-prepared for it, according to one foreign policy expert who also warned it would happen on U.S. soil. The one thing that we know is that China is making fast preparations for war now, Gatestone Institute senior fellow and the great U.S.-China tech war author Gordon Chang said on Mornings with Maria Monday. Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, just about 24 hours ago said all of this was overheated rhetoric, the way he put it. But the point is, China is preparing to kill Americans and we've got to prepare to defend ourselves, Chang continued. And the Defense Department is making slow, really slow, molasses-slow preparations to oppose China. Chang's comments were made just before an NBC News report revealed the Chinese spy balloon which traversed the continental U.S. earlier this year gathered sensitive information as it flew over American military sites, despite the White House's efforts to block it, according to two senior officials and one former Biden administration official. Ted Cruz warns Biden's foreign policy agenda is great for enemies of America. The officials further claimed China collected the information through electronic signals which were sent back to Beijing in real time, Fox News confirmed. Read on the Fox Business app. Noting the U.S. stands at an inflection point with China, Chang further argued that when a war breaks out in Asia, it may also break out within American borders. The real risk here is at the Darien Gap, the expert said, referring to the peninsula which connects North to South America. Michael Yan, a war correspondent, is saying that he is seeing Chinese males of military age who are unattached to family groups. Those, I believe, are saboteurs. And on the first day of a war in Asia, that will be fought on American soil as these saboteurs try to take down our grid, poison our water, detonate bombs in shopping centers. The administration should be looking at those males, Chang added, because I think that that is where we are going to see the next war start, those guys acting on our soil. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick expressed concerns to host Maria Bartiromo on Sunday over the surge of Chinese migrants crossing the southern border. These people are mostly educated, young adults that China is sending here to eventually go to our colleges, work in our business, steal secrets, and send them back to China, Patrick said. Fox News chief national security correspondent Jennifer Griffin spoke to U.S. officials Monday who reportedly pushed back against any suggestion that the intelligence the Chinese were able to gather was of significant value, standing by their original statements that any signals or electronic intelligence that the balloon gathered was of limited intelligence value. It's up to the American people to put pressure on Biden so that he cannot get away with doing the minimum. This is critical right now, Chang said. China is doing so many different things that are really ominous. And yet, people in the Pentagon, people in the Oval Office, they're just pretending not to notice.
Yeah, China is against us and they're trying to attack us any way they can. COVID-19, spy balloon, trying to get information. Now they're sending their own people across the southern border to infiltrate us, just like the Trojan horse. Biden need to wake up, stop being an old crippled man. Anyway, let's go to the next one. This is from the Week UK. Is China about to invade Taiwan?
Beijing warns proposed meeting between Taiwan president and U.S. speaker would violate One China principle. 10 Chinese aircraft crossed into Taiwanese airspace just days after Beijing threatened retaliation if Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen meets U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. 9 Chinese fighter jets and 1 military drone crossed the median line, the unofficial border between mainland China and Taiwan, at 6 a.m. local time on Saturday, according to a daily report by Taiwan's Defense Ministry on Chinese military activities. In response, Taiwan sent combat aircraft to warn away the Chinese aircraft, while missile systems monitored them, according to the ministry report, which Reuters reported used standard wording for its response. The incident came after Beijing has threatened unspecified retaliation should Tsai meet Speaker McCarthy as she transits through the U.S. on her way back from her trip to Central America. China and Taiwan were divided during a civil war in the 1940s, but Beijing has always maintained that the island should at some point be reclaimed. Beijing has described the government in Taipei as separatists, while refusing to rule out the use of force to bring it back into China's direct orbit.
Okay, there's more you can read about this if you like. The article will be in my description box. They got U.S. stopover stokes tensions, preparing for war, and I'm going to go to the next one now. This one here is from 1945. This country here readies for war while Joe Biden sleeps. Can't say the name of that country. I have a hard time saying it.
Venezuela readies for war while Joe Biden sleeps. The United States is a zombie empire abroad and a banana republic at home. On the world stage, Washington went from being the first among equals following the end of the Cold War, the sine qua non of the world system that it had helped to foster, to today being a cancerous growth to an international order trending toward multipolarity, specifically, a tripolar system in which China and Russia triangulate against the United States. Autocrats carve up the world. Everywhere American decline, while still reversible, if a new American leadership can be elected in 2024, is seen and felt. Whereas the post-Cold War order was purportedly predicated upon the abandonment of territorial wars of aggrandizement and resource conflicts, the post-2022 world appears defined by such struggles. It began with Russia in Ukraine. The failure of the Western nations to either stop the Russian invasion of Ukraine or to find a peaceful settlement to the conflict has ensured that there will be no going back to the pre-2022 peace. Thanks to the listlessness of the Western powers and the dearth of decent leadership in those states, notably in America, every larger power that has a geopolitical axe to grind with its smaller, less powerful neighbors will seek to settle those disputes through the injudicious use of force. Using the Russian example in Ukraine, and possibly the Chinese example in Taiwan, autocrats everywhere are sharpening their knives as they ready to carve up their respective spheres of influence.
Okay, there's more to read if you want to read more about that. This one here says U.S. about to lose Latin America. Biden lost Brazil, says here. You know, all this stuff didn't happen to Biden. Biden got in. I blame everything on him. He's a waste of breath. Waste of my air. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This one here from the HuffPost UK. Why the St. Petersburg bombing is a big deal for Russia.
A police officer stands guard at the scene of the cafe explosion in which Russian military blogger Vladlen Tatarsky. A Russian military blogger was killed after a bomb exploded in a St. Petersburg cafe over the weekend. The death of Vladlen Tatarsky, whose real name is Maxim Fomin, has already led to the arrest of a woman allegedly against the war in Ukraine. Although this incident in Russia's second-largest city is far away from the war's bloody front lines, it is grabbing international headlines, so here's what you need to know. What happened? Tatarsky had more than 560,000 followers on Telegram, the social media app, and was considered one of the more prominent military bloggers who back Russia's war efforts. Born in the now-occupied Donetsk Oblast in eastern Ukraine, he once described Ukrainians as mentally ill Russians. Tatarsky also didn't hesitate to criticize anyone who led offensives, including Russia's President Vladimir Putin, whenever they failed. He was not a government official or a military officer, but did have a criminal past, according to the BBC and the Kyiv Independent, having served time in Ukrainian prisons several times since 2011. He did still manage to sign up to the Russian armed forces in 2014 though, according to the Kyiv Independent.
The rest of this in my description box if you like. Oh, what's the wrong way here? This one here from Fox News. Let's see. Yeah, this one here from Fox News. Democratic senator says he will hold Biden administration accountable for China gathering intel in spy balloon flight.
A Democratic senator said on Monday that China intended to invade the airspace over the U.S. when a balloon traversed over the country for days in February, and he plans to hold the Biden administration accountable. Senator John Tester, Democrat Montana, turned to social media on Monday after reading an article from NBC that said the Chinese spy balloon collected intelligence from multiple military sites in the U.S., even though the Biden administration attempted to stop it from doing so, citing 2 senior U.S. officials and a senior administration official. "We knew all along that China's invasion of our airspace was no accident," Tester said. "There's nothing more important than keeping America safe. When a balloon safe, and I'll keep holding the Biden administration accountable to ensure Montanans' freedom and privacy are protected." Pentagon releases U-2 photo of Chinese spy balloon in flight before it was shot down. The NBC article points out that China could control the balloon and make multiple passes over sites before transmitting the information back to China in real time, according to the 3 officials. The same officials told NBC that China may have gathered more intelligence from military sites had it not been for the Biden administration's attempt to block the electronic signals fronty balloon.
And you can read the rest about this in my description box if you like. There's more to read. And we'll see what we got here. This is from 1945. Joe Biden has a new political headache to deal with.
Marianne Williamson, the best-selling author and now Democratic presidential candidate, appears to be gaining ground against President Joe Biden, according to a new poll. At present, Williamson is the only candidate to declare an intention to run for president in 2024. Even Biden, who is widely expected to seek a second term, has not formally declared his candidacy. Despite the new poll results, Williamson is not considered a serious candidate for the White House. Williamson is a long shot. Widely viewed as a long shot candidate, Newsweek reported, an initial March poll showed Williamson with low single-digit support against Biden. Notably, the progressive political activist previously sought the Democratic nomination in 2020, along with more than 20 others, but dropped out before the Iowa caucuses. She did, however, gain notable national visibility and has remained a prominent figure within progressive political circles.
I'm going to play on this one here. You can read the rest of this in my description box. Have you noticed that, everybody's against Joe Biden nowadays? Even the Democrats starting to be against him. Here's one from Market Watch. What surprise all production cuts mean for the Fed's rate plans in markets?
Market Extra. A surprise production cut by Saudi Arabia and several of its OPEC Plus partners could complicate the outlook for stocks, bonds and currencies while undercutting the fight against inflation by the Federal Reserve and other central banks, analysts said. Of course, some analysts expect it could ultimately have the opposite effect by helping to quicken the global economy's slide into recession. In this scenario, the economic blowback from any oil price shock would be similar to the credit crunch resulting from the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank that Federal Reserve President Jerome Powell highlighted during a press conference last month. To recap, on Sunday, Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Energy and a handful of OPEC Plus members announced they would cut production by a combined 1.16 million barrels a day starting in May and lasting through the end of the year.
Okay, you can read the rest of this in my description box. There's a lot to read, and my news channel is getting pretty much on time here. Let me see what I got next here. I've been trying to find all the best news I can have for you. This is from Fox News. Social Security cuts could be coming soon. Here's who will be affected.
The Social Security program is expected to run dry within a decade as a result of slower economic growth, and today's youngest retirees could be among the first in the nation to see benefit cuts. New findings from the Social Security and Medicare Trustees report show the entitlement program faces insolvency as soon as 2033, a year earlier than previously projected. The acceleration toward insolvency is largely the result of a 3% downward revision of gross domestic product and labor productivity over the next decade. Unless major changes are made before 2034 to shore up the trust fund, more than 66 million Americans would see a benefit reduction between about 23% to 25%, the report showed. The combined trust funds will be insolvent by 2034, when today's 56-year-olds reach the full retirement age and today's youngest retirees turn 73, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, CRFB, said in a recent analysis. Upon insolvency, all beneficiaries will face a 20% across-the-board benefit cut. U.S. national debt on pace to be 225% of GDP by 2050, Penn Wharton says. Over the next 75 years, the benefit cuts will become more severe. Social Security recipients will face a 26% across-the-board cut, according to the CRFB.
And you can read the rest of this. The link will be in my description box. And see if I can get another one or two in. This one here is from the Daily Caller. In just 1 week, the Biden administration proposed $21.5 billion in new regulations. I thought this one here was interesting.
The Biden administration proposed 4 rules with measurable economic impact in the week ending March 31st, which would have a combined regulatory burden of $21.5 billion and 1.3 million hours of paperwork per year, according to an analysis by the American Action Forum, AAF, Monday. The lion's share of the costs would come from a pair of proposed regulations by the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, placing limits on long-lasting chemicals in drinking water and imposing stricter wastewater discharge standards, the AAF reported, citing the EPA's own estimates. Since the start of 2023, the Biden administration has finalized 42 new regulations with a combined regulatory burden of $41.8 billion and 2.7 million paperwork hours. Since the president took office, the Biden administration has finalized 551 rules with a total cost of $359.9 billion and a paperwork burden of 220.1 million hours, the AAF reported. At the same time in his presidency, the Trump administration had issued 617 rules with a regulatory burden of $6.9 billion and 42.8 million paperwork hours, while the Obama administration had issued 797 rules with a regulatory burden of $209.3 billion and 134.5 million hours. Washington, D.C., December 6. U.S. President Joe Biden pauses to answer a question before leaving the East Room after talking about the Build Back Better legislation's new rules around prescription drug prices at the White House on December 6, 2021 in Washington, D.C. Photo by Chip Somodevilla/Getty Images. The largest component of this finalized regulatory burden is a $39 billion rule limiting emissions from heavy-duty vehicles, the AAF reported. The Biden administration recently approved a set of California regulations that would impose even more stringent regulations on heavy-duty vehicles, which experts told the Daily Caller News Foundation would likely be applied nationwide due to California's dominant market position. All content created by the Daily Caller News Foundation, an independent and nonpartisan newswire service, is available without charge to any legitimate news publisher that can provide a large audience. All republished articles must include our logo.
There. That's all they got on that one there. Anyway, let's go to the next one here. This one here from News Nation. Tension rise between Russia and the U.S.
News Nation. Tensions are ratcheting up between Russia and the U.S., reminiscent of the Cold War, as Russia faces internal strife along with the war in Ukraine. Right now, Russia is dealing with the bombing of a prominent military blogger in St. Petersburg while also detaining an American citizen. The White House has lobbed its objections and is also voicing frustration with what's happening in the oil markets. The bombing was a stark reminder of the internal strife inside Russia. This is how much Americans need to live comfortably in the U.S. A pro-war blogger, who sometimes criticized Vladimir Putin's generals for not pushing hard enough to win the war in Ukraine, was blown up over the weekend. He was handed what he thought was a gift, but moments later he was dead and roughly 30 others around him were injured. The suspect was apprehended and is said to be an anti-war activist, while Russian authorities are blaming Ukraine.
And there's more to read on that if you'd like to read it. And let's see. Oh yeah, this is going to be my last one right here. This from the Independent. I thought it was interesting. Coherent radio signal detected from alien planet, prompting hope in search for life.
A coherent radio signal has been detected from an alien planet, suggesting it could be more likely to be habitable. The signal suggests that the planet has its own magnetic field, which is thought to be central to sustaining life on a particular world. On Earth, our magnetic field helps protect us from the high-energy particles and plasma that are blasted from the sun. As such, any alien life is likely to depend on being protected by a similar field. But until now, researchers have struggled to confirm whether distant rocky planets have magnetic fields of their own, and therefore have found it difficult to say how likely a planet might be to able to support life. Now the new candidate, YZ Ceti b, a rocky planet that orbits a star about 12 light-years away, has sent a repeating radio signal that comes from the star and seems to be affected by the planet. The radio waves the researchers detected from the planet appear to be generated when the star interacts with its planet's magnetic field. Because the two of them are so close together, the new candidate is an ideal pair to test theories about whether those magnetic fields could be detectable at such a distance. Researchers described the effect as similar to the aurora borealis, or northern lights, which happens on Earth when high-energy particles from the sun interact with our planet's atmosphere. We're actually seeing the aurora on the star, that's what this radio emission is, said Sebastian Pineda, an astrophysicist at the University of Colorado and one of the researchers who saw the signal. There should also be aurora on the planet if it has its own atmosphere. The search for potentially habitable or life-bearing worlds in other solar systems depends in part on being able to determine if rocky, Earth-like exoplanets actually have magnetic fields, said Joe Pesci, program director for the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. This research shows not only that this particular rocky exoplanet likely has a magnetic field, but provides a promising method to find more. The findings are described in a new paper, Coherent Radio Bursts from Known M-Dwarf Planet Host YZ Ceti, published in Nature Astronomy. From news to politics, travel to sport, culture.
That's what I got for you here. And I hope you like what I had here today. Remember, they'll be reading and speaking, at least my computer will be reading and speaking about world news, interesting news, news to keep you entertained, and news to keep you informed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, at least come back once in a while, and I try to have news for everybody. And thanks for watching. Until next time, later.